Night had fallen, the highway stretched out like an endless black ribbon under a sky choked with stars. I'd been driving for hours. The engine hummed a lonely rhythm. My stomach growled, a low rumble mirroring the hunger building inside me. I needed to eat. Soon. A weathered sign flickered in the distance, barely cutting through the darkness. Diner. Next exit. It didn't look like much, but right now beggars couldn't be choosers. I flicked on my turn signal, a small orange blink against the overwhelming blackness. The exit ramp appeared, swallowing me into its concrete embrace. I pulled off the highway, the engine sighing in relief. The diner sat alone, bathed in the harsh glare of a neon sign. No other cars, no moon, just the diner, the sign, and me. I figured it was just one of those nights where the world felt off-kilter. I stepped out of the car, the air thick and heavy. It smelled like rain, like something dying. I didn't think much of it. Sometimes a bad smell is just a bad smell. I headed towards the diner, the promise of coffee and a hot meal pulling me forward. The bell above the door jangled discordantly as I stepped inside. The diner was mostly empty. A couple of booths were tucked in the shadows. The counter gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lights. A lone figure hunched over a cup of coffee at the far end. "Just you tonight, friend?" I asked, settling onto a stool. The figure didn't move, didn't acknowledge me. I figured he was just one of those quiet types. I wasn't here to make friends, anyway. Just wanted something to fill the void in my gut. A gruff voice startled me. "What'll it be?" A man, built like a bear, stood behind the counter. His face was lost in the shadows of a greasy baseball cap. He wiped his hands on a stained apron, eyes never leaving mine. Coffee, black, and the burger, whatever you call it on the menu, just make it the biggest one you got. My stomach chose for me. Besides, a man like that probably didn't appreciate creative orders coming right up. His voice was flat, devoid of any warmth. He disappeared through a swinging door behind him. The bell above it clanged shut with a dull thud. Silence descended again, heavier this time, like a weight settling on my chest. I took a long sip of the coffee, bitter, burnt, just the way I liked it. But something felt off. I couldn't put my finger on it. Maybe it was the silence. Maybe it was the way the cook kept looking at me, his eyes like chips of ice. Maybe it was just the night itself, full of shadows and strange whispers. The bell above the door jangled again, momentarily breaking the spell. I looked up, expecting to see another lost soul seeking refuge, but there was no one there, just the wind, howling outside like a caged animal. I turned back to the counter. The figure at the end was gone, vanished. I didn't even hear him leave. Unease tightened its grip on me. Something wasn't right. This diner, this whole situation, felt like a page torn from a nightmare. "Where's the other guy?" I asked, my voice raspy. The cook placed a plate in front of me. The burger was enormous, piled high with greasy meat and wilted lettuce. It didn't smell quite right. "Gone," the cook said, a slow smile spreading across his face. "But don't you worry, friend. You'll be joining him soon enough." His eyes glinted in the dim light, filled with something dark and hungry. His words hit me like a punch to the gut. Joining him soon enough, what the hell did that mean? I looked down at the burger. It didn't look so appetizing anymore. Something glistened on the side, a fly. Dead, its tiny legs curled up as if frozen in a final, desperate dance. What the hell is this? My voice came out low, dangerous. I pushed the plate away, the smell suddenly making my stomach churn. The cook just chuckled, a low, rumbling sound that seemed to shake the very foundation of the diner. "Just a little extra protein," he said, his smile widening. Something about that smile sent shivers down my spine. It wasn't a friendly smile, it was the smile of a predator, toying with its prey. I stood up, knocking over my stool. "I'm out of here. I didn't want the burger, didn't want the coffee, didn't want anything to do with this place or the man who ran it. All I wanted was to get back on the road, put as much distance between me and this diner as humanly possible. Humanly." Turned towards the door, my hand reaching for the handle, but it wouldn't budge. Locked, tried again, putting my weight into it. Nothing. Panic started to rise in my chest, a cold, clammy hand squeezing my heart. "Let me out of here," I growled, my voice shaking. Turned back to face the cook, my eyes searching his face for any sign of humanity, any flicker of reason. But there was nothing, just that cold, predatory smile. "You'll misunderstand, friend," the cook said, his voice smooth as silk. "You're not a customer. You're the main course." He took a step towards me, the smile gone, replaced by a look of pure animal hunger. My heart pounded in my chest. This wasn't happening. It couldn't be. This was a diner, for God's sake, not a horror movie. But the look in the cook's eyes told me this was all too real. I was trapped. "Let me go," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Backed away slowly, my eyes darting around the diner, searching for any possible escape. But there was none. The windows were boarded up. The back door, no doubt, locked as well. The cook advanced, his heavy boots thudding against the linoleum floor. He pulled a cleaver from his apron, the blade glinting under the fluorescent lights. It wasn't a kitchen knife, it was a butcher's tool, a tool for dismembering. "You're trapped, friend," the cook said, his voice a low growl. "No one comes to this diner anymore. Not since I made certain changes." He licked his lips, his eyes gleaming with a terrifying light. I knew then that I had to fight. No way in hell was I going to be his next victim. Grabbed a heavy coffee pot from the counter, the only weapon I could find. "Stay back," I shouted, my voice hoarse with fear and adrenaline. The cook just laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the empty diner. He charged, the cleaver raised high. The diner, once a place of comfort, had become my prison, my death sentence, and the night, once full of the promise of a good meal, now reeked of blood and terror. He lunged. The cleaver whistled through the air, missing my head by inches. The force of his blow shattered the window behind me, sending shards of glass flying. Rain lashed in, cold and unforgiving. I swung the coffee pot with all my might. It connected with his shoulder. I heard a sickening thud, but he didn't go down, didn't even flinch, just roared in anger, a sound that seemed to shake the very walls of the diner. Adrenaline surged through me, a potent cocktail of fear and desperation. I had to get out, had to escape this nightmare, but the cook was blocking the door, a hulking figure silhouetted against the storm raging outside. I dashed for the kitchen, hoping to find another way out. The cook was close behind, his heavy breathing echoing my own panicked gasps. The swinging door slammed shut behind me, plunging me into darkness. I fumbled for the light switch, found it, flicked it on. The kitchen was a charnel house, counters stained crimson, hooks hanging from the ceiling, dripping something dark and viscous. The air was thick with the metallic tang of blood. I heard him coming, heavy footsteps, cleaver scraping against the floor. This wasn't a kitchen, it was a slaughterhouse, and I was the livestock. I spotted a back door at the far end of the kitchen, my only chance. I dashed towards it, my lungs burning, my heart pounding against my ribs. Flung it open, a sliver of hope cutting through the terror. But the alleyway behind the diner was a dead end, fenced in, trapped. I spun around, my back against the cold brick wall, my breath catching in my throat. The cook stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the light from the kitchen. He was smiling again, that same chilling smile. "Nowhere left to run, friend," he said, his voice calm, almost conversational. He advanced slowly, savoring my terror. Each step he took chipped away at my dwindling hope. I raised my hands in a gesture of surrender, knowing it was futile but unable to do anything else. "Please," I croaked, my voice hoarse. "Don't do this." He stopped in front of me, close enough to smell the blood and grease clinging to his clothes. "Don't worry," he said, his voice a low whisper. "It'll all be over soon." He raised the cleaver, the blade glinting under the dim light. I closed my eyes, bracing for the impact, but instead of pain there was only a deafening roar, then darkness. Blackness swallowed me whole, a void without end. Then a jolt, searing pain ripped through my head, bringing me crashing back to reality. My eyes flickered open, met by a blinding light. I blinked, trying to clear the fog of unconsciousness. I was no longer in the alley, no longer in the diner. I was somewhere else. A basement maybe, damp, cold, the air thick with the smell of mildew and something far more sinister, something metallic, something that made my stomach churn. I tried to sit up, but a sharp pain shot through my wrists and ankles. bound, tied to a chair, bolted to the floor. I struggled against the restraints, panic rising in my chest, a wild animal clawing its way up my throat. The light above flickered again, casting long, grotesque shadows that danced across the walls. Shadows that seemed to writhe and twist, taking on monstrous shapes in the periphery of my vision. "Ah, you're awake." The voice, a low growl, sent shivers down my spine. The cook. He stepped into the light, his face a mask of cruel amusement. He was no longer wearing the greasy apron. Now he wore a blood-stained butcher's smock, the white fabric a macabre canvas for the horrors he had wrought. He ran a calloused hand along the blade of the cleaver, his eyes never leaving mine. "Don't worry, friend," he said, his voice a sickeningly sweet drawl. "You're not going anywhere." He circled me, a predator admiring his prey. My heart hammered against my ribs, each beat a frantic drum solo against the symphony of terror rising within me. I wanted to scream, to plead for my life, but all that came out was a dry, choked sob. "You're probably wondering why you're here," the cook said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. He leaned in close, his breath hot and foul against my ear. "Let's just say, business hasn't been so good lately. People don't appreciate quality like they used to." He chuckled, a low, rumbling sound that seemed to echo the moans and cries that seemed to emanate from the shadows themselves. I realized then what the metallic smell was: blood, death, and something else. Something familiar. "You see, friend," the cook continued, his voice taking on an almost gleeful tone, "I found a way to enhance the flavor. A secret ingredient, if you will." He gestured to the shadows with the cleaver. They weren't too happy about it at first, but he let out a harsh laugh. "They're much more cooperative now." He stepped back, admiring his handiwork. "And you, my friend, are going to be the star of the show." He raised the cleaver high, the flickering light reflecting off the blade, sending shards of light dancing across the walls like demented fireflies. My stomach lurched. The smell hit me then, full force. It wasn't just blood, it was meat. Cooked meat and something else, something sweet, fruity. The realization slammed into me like a runaway train. You put them in the... I couldn't even finish the sentence. The horror of it all, the sheer depravity, threatened to overwhelm me. The cook just smiled, that same chilling smile that had haunted me since I first stepped into his diner. "Bon appetit, friend." The cleaver fell, a flash of blinding pain. A scream died in my throat, choked by the raw, primal terror that seized my being. My vision sparkled, white-hot agony radiating from the point where the blade met flesh. The metallic tang of blood filled my mouth, a taste of my own mortality. He worked quickly, with a practiced hand like a butcher preparing a side of beef. Each swing of the cleaver brought a fresh wave of pain, each slice a symphony of agony conducted on the strings of my nerves. I thrashed against the restraints, my struggles futile, only tightening the grip of the chains that bound me to this waking nightmare. Through the haze of pain, I saw him, the cook. His face, illuminated by the flickering light, was a grotesque mask of delight. He worked with a detached focus, his eyes gleaming with a terrifying light. This wasn't just murder, it was art, and I was the canvas. The air grew heavy, thick with the coppery scent of blood and the sickeningly sweet aroma of fruit. My stomach lurched. He was already preparing it, the special ingredient, my flesh mixed with God knows what else, destined for some unholy pie, some gruesome stew. He hummed a tuneless melody as he worked, the sound chilling me to the bone. Occasionally he'd glance up at me, a twisted smile playing on his lips, as if acknowledging some shared joke, some macabre understanding that existed only between butcher and meat. I wanted to scream, to plead, to bargain for my life, but the words wouldn't come. Only whimpers of pain, gasps of terror. The smell of my own cooking flesh filled the air. A perverse incense offered up to some dark god. This was my final indignity, my life, my very essence reduced to a culinary abomination. He finished. My body, what was left of it, slumped against the restraints, a mangled testament to his gruesome artistry. He stood back to admire his work, wiping the back of his hand across his brow, smearing blood and sweat. He surveyed the scene with a critical eye, a craftsman proud of his creation. "Perfect," he murmured, his voice a low rumble of satisfaction. He grabbed a ladle, dipped it into the pot, and brought it to my lips. "Here, friend," he said, his voice dripping with false concern. "Have a taste." I turned my head away, my stomach churning. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction. My defiance, however small, was all I had left. He chuckled, a low, rumbling sound that echoed through the basement, a sound that spoke of countless other meals, countless other victims. "Suit yourself," he said, shrugging. "More for me, then." He walked towards the stairs, the ladle still in his hand, the pot bubbling ominously behind him. As he ascended, his shadow stretched across the floor, reaching towards me like the grasping claws of some monstrous beast. And then he was gone.